Valheim, one of the biggest successes of an independent game in years. The most successful early access launch of any survival game ever. It's had nearly 8 million people confirmed, probably up to 9 or 10 million by now, and that is the biggest amount in 1 year for any single survival game. Absolutely killing it, 95% positive rating score on Steam. Simply put, one of the best co-op experiences you can play in the last year. What is it going to look like in 2022 though? Well, it's not going to look like this. Despite how much you might like it, this is just a fan creation. I'm going to be using some more inspirations to demonstrate some of the possibilities that's come to Valheim, as well as confirmed stuff. My name is Jade, let's go with Valheim 2022. So we first got news about the mountains having a bit of a revamp and more content added to it to help balance it out a little bit. The mountains have been a very hostile place to go and get certain ingredients and obviously take on Moda, but it is often still just a little bit flat when exploring the zone. It needed something a bit more to entice players to go there, spend more time in that zone instead of only getting in and getting out. So we know they're going to be adding some dungeons or caves or caverns to the mountain, and in these dungeons we're going to be exploring, in my opinion, the cult of the wolf and taking on fenrings. You'll have come across these creatures out in the wilderness at night time, but this looks like this is going to be their home and possibly somewhere where they'll be during the day. The fenrings are pretty tough and they obviously give you wolf fangs so that you can go ahead and craft some gear and items that require it. But I'm hoping that we'll also get some extra resources in these caves. The entranceways are massive, you can tell clearly where they're going to be from a good distance as well by the looks of them, with the icicles at the front inviting players to maybe get in out of the cold also. Question is, are they going to be like troll caves, simply just sort of one big chamber, or are they going to branch off and be a bit more entwining like maybe the swamp dungeons? Either way, it does look like they will offer some respite to the cold and give us a chance to maybe gear up and get ready if we do maybe not encounter too many of the fenrings. These screenshots are all from the blogs in the last few months, and you can clearly see the eyes of a fenring in here as well, looking about the same size as the one that we encountered out in the wild, with what looks to be, to me, maybe obsidian resting on the pedestal next to what appears to be some sort of pedestal or devotion to the wolf or fenrings. Given the other screenshots that show man praying to the fenring or to the wolves, I think it's pretty safe bet to say that this is the cult of the wolf content, and that's what this update will be called. It won't be called the mountain or the caverns update or the fenring cave update. It is going to be the cult of the wolf, and this is what to expect for the first birthday of Valheim in February. Richard Svensson, the creator of Valheim, has already ruled out that Mistlands will be the content that arrives on Valheim's first birthday. We've only got maybe a month or so to go between that birthday, and so I feel like this is going to be a big part of its first anniversary, arriving maybe just a few days before or just exactly on the same day. We're going to talk about frequency updates a little later on and some of the timings that I'm sure some people may have some issues with, but if you follow the story of Valheim, you understand and know about the game development world, then you will be happy that they're really focusing on quality for their updates. That's why they decided to rip up the old roadmap and basically rejig and redo a few things. But you will notice, if this is Cult of the Wolf, it will follow the Hearth and Home update, and then afterwards, supposedly, we've still got the Ships and the Sea, and then we've got the Mistlands. We know now that the Mistlands is being worked on at the same time as a lot of other content. The Cult of the Wolf has been worked on by some of the team, the Mistlands has been worked on by Richard and others, and so we're going to be seeing the Mistlands hopefully a bit sooner than what was originally envisioned. Now, a lot of this content was supposedly for 2021, but a lot of it got expanded. The success of the game meant that they couldn't put out these tiny little updates that might have only been a small little few fixes. They had to really flesh out more because the game's stature deserved and warranted a bit more content. Effectively, that's why content has been slow. They have doubled the size of their development team. They're up to 10 few strong now, and it doesn't look like they're going to be going any bigger much sooner than that. They don't want to be the Call of Duty or Ubisoft having 500 employees for a game that they will finish. Valheim won't go on forever and ever. It is something they're going to work on. They'll support post-launch with updates and maybe some content, but it does look like they are looking forward to making brand new games in the future as well. Especially Richard Svensson has said that he doesn't want to just carry on making Valheim his whole life. That doesn't mean Valheim will stop though. They may pass it off to other members of the team, or may even get another team in entirely to take over, or even start working on a Valheim 2. You never know. So the mountains, expect brand new loot, expect more resources, maybe of the same. I'm hoping that we get a chance to get more silver and more glass from some of these dungeons, as well as obviously being able to take on the fen rings to get more of the wolf fangs. But especially the glass, I feel it's pretty hard to find some of the golems sometimes, and you don't get much considering if you really want to go start building your windows for your houses and buildings. So it could be a perfect opportunity to get more of that resource as well as obsidian. And alongside that, yes, we'll hopefully have some new weapons, new styles and new tools to use alongside this update. Although it might not be as big as everyone thinks it's going to be, this could be the definition of it. Fen rings in these caves and caverns, a few bits of new loot and maybe some obsidian or some sort of resource that you can gather freely a little bit extra. So in my opinion, that means we won't see the Mistlands update actually hit until maybe April or May or even later. They've said in a recent AMA that each of the biomes is going to take 6 to 9 months, but over time that number will decrease, so it will be a little bit quicker, effectively meaning that they want to make sure they're getting everything right. They spent a long time getting Hearth and Home update correct, they spent a long time getting the Mistlands update done, but the theory goes that after that things will be easier to implement. They've got more staff working on stuff now, and so it should become a lot quicker. I don't think it's going to be miraculously that much quicker in terms of like only a month or two, and so that's why I'm putting at best a update maybe in April, but most likely May, at worst case possibly June. There will be other smaller additions added alongside these updates, but these are the big sort of markers they're working or focusing on, part of the team at least anyway. You're seeing old footage of the Mistlands. This is what it originally was when the game was here for the first 6 or 7 months, maybe 8 before they started changing it and getting it ready for the next update. It's filled with these big huge trees, lots of cobwebs and giant massive skulls. So that leads me to believe we'll have some sort of spider or arachnid enemy. This is the Mistlands now. They've completely taken away a lot of the stuff on it, and the ground here might not even stay the same, as recent pictures from Richard in the last few months have shown progress towards changing the Mistlands really a lot. This is just a texture test for the ground. You can see it's much more wet, there's a lot more glistening going around, and yes, you've got low-lying mist, and the hills and the crevices have been altered and changed as well. But this picture really shows the changes. Gone is the big gnarly trees, although they may still be added back in, you never know. It's filled with sharp edges, as you can see from these strange jutting shards out the ground, as well as the big cliffs, and yeah, looking likely we'll be going in and out of the mist. So hearsay time, what kind of creatures could potentially be going into the Mistlands? So a long time ago, when Valheim first came out, I showed off Richard Svensson's Pinterest board. These were all just pieces of art that he liked or felt were cool, and I'm sure some of this may give him some ideas or influence, or reaffirming what he thought about Valheim. Now he did put his profile on private after this. Apologies Richard, I didn't want everyone to hound you, I just wanted to share what I thought you had your interest in, because it was pretty cool. And there are definitely what I feel some inspirations we could potentially see in the Mistlands update. How about some sort of tentacled monster or some sort of Lovecraftian creature roaming through the Mistlands? Potentially a big massive boss, or a huge Draugr boss covered in black ebony armour ready to take down any Vikings. Maybe we'll have to climb him to actually take him down. This last image though does make me feel the most kind of akin to the Mistlands. It's got the same sort of topography as in big cliffs and mountains, and it's a huge giant skeleton. The original Mistlands content that was there does showcase these giant massive skulls that have been there. It could be continuation of the Yagaloth boss we see in the plains and stuff, but I am not too sure. I think we'll still see some sort of really giant creature specifically for this biome with some sort of skull body and face. The Mistlands will be a big update. It will have new resources to gather. We are going to need maybe some of the resources or weapons we've crafted, things like possibly the black metal, to go and utilise against enemies inside the Mistlands. Maybe it'll be filled, like I said, with spiders or possibly more sort of skeletal creatures too. But yeah, that's when I expect it, at some point between sort of April and June. So bearing in mind that the old roadmap was ripped up, some of these other features could potentially be appearing sooner. Like we knew the tar pits came into the game, and we've got other elements that could appear that might be a bit quicker just to add in here ad hoc. This is again some fan art that's gone to the extra lengths of actually making character models for it, and this is the svaltfalr briigands. I repeat, this is not an Valheim asset. I know it might seem a bit weird I'm using some of this stuff, but I want to show you something visual rather than just sitting here talking about stuff we don't know. And the idea of the svaltfalr brigands is that they are meant to be either dwarves or black elves, depending on where you look or what you look into. So yes, it's either going to be a brigand or little dwarves that will come along potentially, and we'll have to defend our lands against them, or we might be able to buy and get resources and items from them. And like I said, there is some translation that says they are actual elves, just a much more darker version, and ones that are more akin, I would say, to more rogue and evil-like. That is an example of something that could just be added into one of the biomes, or apparently they'll just come in at any time. Don't think that it necessarily has to be related to a particular biome. It could be something that just gets added in between now and at any point in the year. So don't despair just because they're focusing on these biome updates every 6 months possibly. It doesn't mean that the game's not going to have content in between. They've said and committed they're going to update the game with smaller little bits like we've seen with the armor stands, as well as obviously the root armor recently. And although the original roadmap is no longer or should be taken as gospel, there's still things in there I think will definitely come to the game. It's just about fleshing them out and making them a bit bigger than they originally were. I'm pretty confident in between now and late summer we'll see improvements to things like inventory. We're not going to see special arm slots, they've said they're not going to add that, but they are looking into increasing ways that you can increase your inventory. Whether it'll be something you buy from an NPC, or maybe being able to craft extra bigger belts or backpacks. At the end of this video I will go a definitive list of stuff they've said absolutely no to in some of their AMAs as well. So, carrying on our theme of looking at the actual biomes, then the ashlands will be next, judging by everything they've put on their social media and questions before, and that's looking likely to be, I would say, around October, November time. Again, I know it's a long time, but there will be content in between, and this will be obviously fleshing out an area. Don't expect anything you're seeing here to be the same, but I'm guessing we'll still have some of these guys as enemies, or possibly at least the flametal as something that we will be going to harvest and mine to make the next tier of weapons and armors, which won't always be exactly the same. The devs have said they don't want to just make the same armor and weapons in the same different styles or different materials. They do want to do side armors and side weapons or tools to mix it up a little bit too. So I won't speculate too much on this particular biome, other than that of course it looks like it's going to be a hot climate and things may change where we may need armors that will help us kind of stay cool against the actual heat. And it does look like, again, with all the biomes having materials that you need to get or help you through the next biome, the flametal will be good for taking us into the very cold, deep north. Now I know I said this is 2022, but I fully expect this actual biome to actually come out with the full release of Valheim. This will be the last explorable place for players. It will give players who haven't played Valheim for a while a chance to come back, getting hyped up for the full release of the game and having something fresh to go and conquer and do as a complete package. There is an ending to Valheim. It's going to be a bit like Conan Exiles, where maybe you take the actual things off. The whole point of the story is that you're putting through tests on Valheim by possibly Odin to prove yourself worthy of helping him fight against some dark forces. I personally think I would like to see more of these style creatures in this area. I think by that point we'll be much more able to take on a lot of these with the flametal tools possibly, so stone golems might be a common occurrence more. Maybe we'll get snow yetis, maybe we'll get polar bears. The devs have said in a few AMAs or teased that they would like to add more creatures, but they don't want to add them just for the sake of it. They have to have a purpose, it has to fit in with the rest of the story and the mechanics and flow of the game. So you're probably not going to add bears to any of the Black Forest biomes at the moment. They've got enough of the trolls and the grey dwarves and everything else. And so really, where else could you add a bear? Well, I would say, yeah, in the deep north, where polar bears would normally roam amongst the icebergs and the snow. Could a potential boss be a giant polar bear that we're taking on as the final boss, or could there be mini versions of them running around? Speaking of mini bosses, that is something that's going to be coming in, harder versions that we already kind of got a little bit in terms of skeletal warriors. You've got the sort of upgrades to them, the Fulins have all got different kinds of variations, so it might not be too much of a draw to see some of them kinds of creatures added in as bigger versions in the snow, so maybe like a giant snow golem. And part of their big update to the year was meant to be more ship work and ocean work. There aren't going to be any major changes to the ocean biomes though, they're pretty much how they are. You're not going to be diving underneath to grab sunken treasures, but they will add new creatures. There's going to be some sort of air creature that roams around on the ocean air rather than maybe just in the water, and they're improving the fishing mechanics. They want to add something more to it or change how the actual mechanics work for it now. In terms of boats and ships, we're all presuming customization, as there was some ships with shields on the sides of them in the original demo game back in the day. But we're not going to get things like oars. They've said they don't want anything to upset the balance between single player and multiplayer, and they don't want anything to give an advantage if you've got more players, where you could all jump on the boat, use the oars to get across places quicker. So that is something they're not going to be adding. So sure, plenty of options in terms of smaller creatures they could add, but I wouldn't maybe expect maybe a water boss. They've clearly and distinctly said in the past that they're adding 3 major biomes and 3 extra bosses. So the Mistlands, the Ashlands and the Deep North. I would expect the ocean to be worked alongside some of the other content, and it will come in a smaller update in between one of the bigger biome updates just to flesh it out a bit more. Again, many changes with the ships or additions could be something they add incrementally rather than just one big update. Things like difficulty modes making it easier or harder to play, or the sandbox mode having a full-blown creative mode without any cheats or commands being used, that'll all come with full release. That's not going to be added, I don't think, anytime soon. Likelihood as well that achievements won't be added until the last moments, last few months just before release as well. And it doesn't look like they're going to mess around with any more of the core mechanics too much. I don't think they're going to drastically alter the amount of XP you get for dying or losing, etc. or any of the other main core systems. It is about 75% feature complete. It's about adding these final things to it now. I was kindly given the concept art which I used in the thumbnail to really highlight how ideas and things can change. These were the first iterations of pretty much the tree monster that we've just seen added to the swamp. And it's that kind of content that's going to be added in more frequently, I think, in between these big updates. Little features, little enemies, little additions that will give us something to do and keep the fan base that really enjoy playing this game a little bit happier. And other people will come back from update to update to check out the new stuff when there's big content to be added, and that's okay. It's not a live service game, it is just an adventure game that they've made that's just gone insanely popular. But do take everything I've said with a pinch of salt. As I said, as I'm showing you, lots of ways can change, lots of items can change, how they originally started out to what they originally look like, and so we've seen that a lot with the biome changes already. So let's go through a bunch of stuff that they've committed to or been a little bit more enthusiastic about rather than just everything hearsay. So a lot of the other stuff we've kind of covered already. The multiplayer interactions will always be ongoing, as will combat. They've said as well that they're looking to add weapon sets. Not everything dual wield, but there might be certain weapons that come as a pair that you'll use. They've got still no plans to add any kind of PvP mode to the game or anything like that at the moment. It's really like low on priorities or any kind of game mode or anything like that. The most intriguing out of this lot for me is the moon phases, and that could potentially mean we get bigger waves of creatures. So not only will the ground be shaking occasionally, but maybe if the moon phase is at a certain point, the ground will be shaking with double the amount of trolls as normal. This would maybe help alleviate a few concerns players have about having too many events hit them sometimes. At least if it's on the moon phase and we can tell what's going on with it, we'll be able to prepare and get ready for each one. Tar pits are obviously in the game, I can't see many changes being added to them. The vendor inventory, we kind of know that might expand, we'll be able to buy new items from the vendor and possibly get a second vendor. Then the svaltfalr briigands we've kind of covered, that's just an idea of what I imagine could come. And more unique locations as we've seen, like the mountain sort of cult of the wolf locations being added in. Sandbox mode would be great, but don't expect that to full release, and mooning is obviously another one of the ravens, I do believe. So potentially extra sort of lore being added to it, or an actual proper full-blown NPC that will be able to get further items from maybe. But no quests. So let's run down what they've definitely said they're not adding, based off their last 2 AMAs and anything I've seen on social medias, as well as interviews I've done myself. No diagonal build pieces. They've got to think about performance and they feel it's just unnecessary at the moment. Can't rule it out forever, but it isn't something that's high on their priorities, so don't expect it anytime soon. I.e. not being able to rotate items on a free diagonal basis or 3-point access. Build stuff will come, but it's going to come with meaning. It's not going to be just purely there for decoration, majority of it, and it will come alongside a lot of these updates that will give us new resources to craft new items with. It does kind of look like most of the build sets are there though. I can't imagine we're going to get any other big build sets. We're not going to get a whole complete version of like dark oak wood or golden crystal. What we've got is kind of the baseline. That said, they seem pretty intrigued and encouraging of the idea of having fueling buildings that we might be able to put up in the same or similar style. So it might be a case of having an outpost that we'll be able to build quickly that'll give us some respite and a save point. No quests. They've said that they want the story and lore to be there, but they don't want it to be a case of just getting these quests that will tick off. They'll have reasons for you to do things, but they want it to not be a guiding hand on you, always kind of pushing you somewhere. It's about what you want to do. Alongside that means no respawnable resources. The game is all about exploring and going out of your comfort zone, building new outposts, and that's the kind of thing they want you to go for. They're going to entice you with better dungeons, better reasons to explore to get maybe more rewards. But no actual quest givers as such. They do have some sort of plans for Yggdrasil, the actual tree, so I'm guessing that's going to be part of the end game. But they have already stated that the biomes and their bosses are already there. They don't have any big plans to add in any final giant boss. Although that could again just be smoke screens to stop from the 4.0 release. But certainly in 2022, no. Mentioned earlier, they want to add more tools and weapons that aren't just direct copies of what we've already got. They want to add side armors, side equipment, stuff that you will have better uses or different uses for. But it doesn't mean not all the armor is going to get some more love. They are looking at ways to maybe make troll armor a little bit more useful or certain situations better in the future. But it does mean they're probably going to rule out custom armors at the moment, and especially having any kind of clothing that isn't related to armor. They're thinking of maybe adding drawbridges or some sort of mechanism like that, but they won't be adding wholesale traps and snares, other than improving fishing with possibly some sort of baskets and stuff like that additionally. It's become very popular, i.e. because of Icarus, seeing flames go and ruin your base and make it all go up in smoke. They tried this back in the day, as one version of Valheim did have spreadable fire, but they decided it wasn't really for them. But it might make some sort of return. What if buildings inside the ashlands biome could potentially have some of that danger? But at the moment, yeah, no plans for spreadable fire. That goes alongside also with no terraforming. Again, something that some people have been asking for, and I've been asking for like mines and stuff to be added to the game, but some people really want to build underground dwarven fortresses or caverns and stuff, but no. It costs too much in terms of environment and performance. That's why also they're not going to add the wholesale mechanics we saw with the oil or the tar being added to water. At the moment you can kind of make moats and rivers and stuff from the ocean or the rivers, but you can't really create your own bucket of water to go and fill up a lake that you've made yourself somewhere high in the mountains. Basically it takes too much out of performance. That's why they're not adding it in this game anyway. There are clues to frost and fire skills, some sort of magic skills in the skill tree as part of the game. Now this may have been completely abandoned, but there does seem to be a bit of an emphasis on this. It might be something to do with what characters are already in the game and using certain spells or AoE effects, that maybe you'll be getting a resistance to fire or resistance to ice spells in the future. But like I mentioned earlier, they've got no plans to add wholesale, that skills are going to have special moments where you can go and take on players with a special super duper attack or super duper jump. What's there is there. The abilities that you gain from defeating the big bosses, that's pretty much it. The farmers out there will be disappointed that you won't be able to grow your own crops in terms of blueberries or mushrooms. They want to go and explore and get more of them. And it does look like in terms of mushrooms, although there's a few that haven't been utilised in game that you can spawn in, like blue ones I do believe, they have no plans to add any other kind of rage-filled mushrooms that would give you a boost in attack or anything. Older biomes will receive a little bit of love, but not wholesale changes. There will be reasons to revisit some of them still and gain certain bits and bobs and just be shown a little bit of care and attention. But I don't think that will be towards the end of the game coming out of early access, which is meant to be at some point in 2023. One of the things that Richard liked from Pinterest was rideable boars. Could we see more mounts in the future? Well, we've already got the locks, so the locks is pretty much it. Could they add horses and stuff? They haven't completely ruled it out, but in any AMAs, they're kind of being a bit wishy-washy with it. But certainly having the locks is actually do a bit more, potentially having more uses, and more creatures will be added to the game, although again they're not going to add them just for the sake of it, they have to kind of fit in. So maybe we'll get things like snow foxes in the deep north, or like I said, maybe more albatross style creatures or some sort of flying seabird in the ocean biome. I could be here all year talking about stuff the devs did answer, like, oh, it's a great idea, we might think about it, but I've tried to keep it concise to stuff they've either said no to or definitely much more encouraging with. Devs have also spoken a lot in other dev streams and live streams from other creators as well, and again, so anything they've definitely guaranteed, I've hopefully included. If I've missed anything big, do let me know in the comments section. Valheim's come a huge long way, ever from its itch.io demo that you're seeing right now to the fantastic 8 or 9 million plus gamers that have bought the game today. There's a lot of potential, the team are in the right place, they've got more staff than ever before, and they've got concrete plans, at least in terms of what they want to deliver in 2022. We can't expect the moon, and some things I'm sure will be delayed or moved around, and maybe there'll be a lot more surprises thrown our way, and I am keen and eager to see it all. So I'll be there every step of the way as soon as we get any new content. As always, one of the first to tell you guys about it. And like I said, if I've missed anything substantial, do leave it in the comment section down below. Big shout out to the artists that I featured from ArtStation. You'll find the links for their stuff in the comments down below as well. I'm sure I've overestimated and underestimated what the actual game will deliver, but I'm down for playing all and every single beat of it in 2022. Absolutely still going to cover it when we've got some new stuff to talk about. So until next time,